All right. Thanks everybody for being here. Sherry, thank you for being here. I am so excited to have this conversation. Um, you want to tell people a little bit of your background. And before you start, I just want to make sure people understand why I'm having this conversation. A while back, I had a session with a friend who is also from EDA, from the Pleiades, and the commander that came through, being her father, told me, Elisa, you need to help the mothers. You need to help the mothers. With this information. And I just never felt comfortable with that because when I brought up my kids, I was not spiritually awake. So I don't feel like I was the best mom I could have been. So that's why I look for experts. And so, um, the first video I did about the children of the new earth was with Octavia Vasili. She channels the ninth dimensional Pleiadian collective. And then when I heard about Sherri, I realized Sherri helps kids actually, she has actual classes and energy healings and so she deals with children. And that's the reason why I wanted Sherri to come and talk to me, because I feel like I want to make sure everybody knows about her center. So Sherri, just go ahead and tell people like your background and all the good stuff.
Oh, well, first of all, Lisa, thank you so much for having me on your channel. I'm really honored to be here. Gosh, my background, I feel like I've told it a million times.
I know.
Let's see. So, how I started. So, I'm actually I have an animal background. So, I always wanted to work with animals. I've always had a love for animals. So, I at a young age wanted to be a veterinarian, and so I went in high school and worked at a vet hospital and immediately fell in love with the nursing staff and what they did because they got to do all the hands-on stuff, and the doctor would come back and say, okay, we need to do the blood work, the x-rays, and all of these things. And I found so much excitement in watching the nurses or the techs do all of the work. And so I became fascinated with it. And fast forward 20 years, I'm a registered veterinary technician, so I'm a nurse for animals. I worked in general practice. I worked in the intensive care unit for really long time. And then I worked at the zoo for about 10 years here in Washington, D.C. in the hospital. So I have an affinity and passion for animals. That's a big part of my journey, which I think is what led me to work with children, because they're very similar in their love and their expression. And so it wasn't until I started having children, though, not my first. I was young. I was 23 when I had my first child. So I was kind of new and young and very much in the thick of my career. But I noticed that I became very spiritually aware with the first one. I started really paying attention to the world around me, and I became very interested. I started reading a lot of books, and I started to tune in and realize I had this intuitive gift, and and I was different than other people. I've always thought I was different than other people. I never really fit in, to be honest with you. I moved around a lot as a kid. I was kind of weird. And so, which is why I gravitated towards the animals, because I felt like I could communicate with them and they understood me. So my first child really made me look at people and think, how can people be helped just like the animals, or why are people the way they are? And so I started kind of opening that question for me. And then I ended up learning Reiki, really not for people, but I learned it for animals because I was working with animals in the most critical state you've ever seen. I mean, hit by cars, severe surgery recovery. I mean, really, really intense. It
Wow.
was very difficult and very hard to kind of work in that environment. And so I thought there has to be a better way to heal these animals, or there has to be more we can do for them. So I learned Reiki for animals, and then I started having
Wow.
more children. When I was in my early 30s, I had my second, so there was a huge gap in there. And I had a spiritual awakening with the second one, a massive one, and it really opened up my abilities. And I started communicating with my guides and angels. I mean, it's not this black and white. There is a lot of elements to it, but this is kind of the quick explanation of it. And then I started wanting to work with people, and I started having more of an interest in people. Then I had my third daughter, my third child. Actually, before I got pregnant with my third, she came to me, her soul, told me about a year before she was born, and said, I'm your daughter. She called herself Lily back then because that was a name she used previously. And she said, I'm going to be your daughter, and I'm coming in, and I'm going to change your world, and you're going to help me. We're going to work together to open up centers for children, and I channeled her throughout my entire pregnancy, and it was life changing for me.
Wow.
So when she was born, she was very special. She told me exactly the day she was going to be born. It was off by one day, and barely, and which was 3 weeks early. So it was clearly a channeled date that she wanted to be born. And she really opened up a lot for me. And so I really started working more with people and less with animals. And I started developing my own intuitive healing abilities through Reiki and multidimensional healing. Then I started communicating with extraterrestrials who came into my sessions. And it was incredible. Just, I feel like I was getting download after download after download. So when the children came in, it was actually, I was working with parents first. I started noticing that a lot of the adults that I was working with, working through traumas and stress and anxiety and pain, and then those that just wanted to get, intuitive guidance on life decisions, a lot of them had children, and they were struggling because their children were autistic or had ADHD. Now, these are all labels we'll talk about. And they were struggling to fit in, and they were different and very spiritual and very aware. And I remember my daughter saying, we are going to work together and we are going to help these children. So then I started helping the parents by communicating with the children's soul in their sessions to help the parent understand why they are the way they are, what their characteristics are, where they're from, why they're different, and what their role is. So that's where my second book comes in, Divinely Guided, is about the different types of children that I started to catalog in my sessions and to explain why they are the way they are, and from an energetic vibrational perspective. And then slowly those parents started sending me, okay, well, I want to bring my child to you. Can you work with my child? So then I started slowly integrating children. So it's a process over time that's kind of evolved, you
And it
know.
seems to be that way with this type of business. I think we
It
evolve
is.
into all these different, yeah, it's
Yeah,
beautiful.
and it, there's so many more elements to it. I also taught hypnobirthing because I'm also a transpersonal master hypnotherapist. I learned hypnobirthing to help women have a more peaceful, calm birth through teaching them how
Yes.
to hypnotize themselves during their birth. So that I helped a lot of women work through birth traumas and things like that, and that's what led to working with a lot of the parents, then working with their children. So it's all kind of evolved over time. But now I work about 50% of my time. I work with either parents or child, depending on the situation and how young they are, and a lot of adolescents. And then I work with adults on their ascension path. So it's very different, but it all is related. So I help adults with their ascension, and how to move forward and work through their past traumas so that they can release and increase their vibration or raise their vibration and help them enter the new earth. And then I help parents and the children work through the process as well. So there's a lot going on. So I opened up. So I've had that idea because my daughter gave it to me to open up a spiritual center. But in my mind, I was thinking too small. So I was thinking, okay, what I was envisioning or what she was showing me was like a beautiful center with like an outdoor like almost like a home that you turn into like a center for kids. And there's a spiritual center for kids. I saw kids in a classroom with animal, not on a floor, so very comfortable with animals walking around and doing telepathy, and then in another room meditation, in another room yoga, outside there connecting with crystals, and just everything spiritual that you can imagine, the things that we should be taught now, and
Yeah.
that they were learning back in Lemurian time, so eons ago. And I thought it was just the one center. So in my mind, I was like, okay, I'm going to create a beautiful center for children in my area. And I realized I needed to think much bigger. So it was December of this past year, so 2019, I'm sorry, 2020, I got this message, it's time to go. Let's get the centers going. And of course I was like, what? Like, there was the pandemic was going on, and I was just like, I'm not ready, and it wasn't her, it was my guides coming through, and they said, no, Sherri, get going. And I was like, but how do I start? And so it was like, just get the website going, do it, start a business plan, write down the list of classes you want, reach out to teachers. So it happened so fast. Within 3 weeks, I had a full website going. I had 30 classes listed. I had 12 teachers that wanted to work with me, and it just exploded. The problem was in my area that there weren't enough parents ready to allow their children to go to a place because of the COVID restrictions and the mask mandate. And so everybody wanted virtual. And I noticed I was getting emails by the dozens from parents that saw me doing interviews on different platforms like Spiritually Raw and Michael Jaco and other places. And they said, when are you going to have this in my area? I'm in Florida. I'm in California. And I had parents literally emailing me saying, I'm in tears right now. Where has this been all my life? My children need this now. How can they get involved? And I had to redo the entire structure to actually focus it rather on all virtual classes because I needed to reach as many children as possible. And so it's kind of morphed into more of an online school. But then because of my passion and me talking about it and manifesting, I had beautiful investors contact me and they said, I want to help you grow. So now I'm working with investors I envision opening 5 within the first year next year, in 5 states. And then eventually I want one in every major city in every state and in various countries, because I want this to be a youth center where children can go from the ages of whenever they're ready to go to like preschool age all the way up into mid 20s to learn anything. I mean, my list of classes is at 45 right now. And that's just and counting. I mean, anything from introductory spirituality classes all the way up to advanced telekinesis, telepathy, animal communication, energy healing, and everything in between, life skills, gardening, grounding, connecting to earth, understanding what the ascension means and what their path is, how to manage emotions, because that's one of the most challenging thing right now, I would say, hands down, which we can get into, are managing the emotions. So I'm working at creating youth centers that will essentially be very much like a YMCA, but not YMCA at all, but just to give you an idea of how many there will be for these children to go and to learn what they should be learning in school, that they're not. And I'm trying to take over and fight for these children to learn vital skills to guide them in our future generations. So that's kind of a nutshell of kind of the pathway. There's so much more to it, but I'm sure you'll have a lot of questions to ask.
I just get chills because this is, I mean, to me, this is bigger than somebody coming onto a video and saying, "Oh, well, do this and do that." And this is what is actually needed, is the actual where you're going through the with the child, and the child's going through it, and it's not you telling the parent, oh, you should do this and this. It's so different when it's the child and they are learning straight from the source of the information, and they can ask questions and they can be answered. And
Yeah.
so it is so, so, so big. And wow. I mean, are you able to handle the load right now virtually?
No. Well, okay. That Yes and no. Because this has exploded, and I also have a full-time practice where I work one-on-one with a lot of adults, and I'm in the process of finishing my 3rd book, and I'm trying to design the classes. But really, I keep being told you need to get the business plan solidified so that we can get the investors fully involved and we can get this moving. And so
Yeah.
I'm trying to prioritize that. So unfortunately, I've had to cut down significantly with classes. A lot of the teachers that have signed on have gotten more busy now because people have gone back to work, so they're not as available. So the
Mhm.
class size has gone down significantly, but I keep telling people, just hold on. We're going to add a bunch more. Just give me some time. And I need to clone myself because I need more time to interview teachers and get the classes together and put them on the website and make sure everything, because I have to personally vet every single person. If I'm going to trust someone's child, I have to make sure that they're the right fit. I want to know what it is that they're teaching, how they're teaching it. So I'm not going to do this, halfway. It has to be fully 100% spirit guided. And so it's taking a little bit longer. I also have, I don't know if you know this, I a big passion project of mine is I was told to create cartoons for children, and so I have
Wow.
developed with help an entire series. So it's called Divinely Guided Children, and it's on on my YouTube channel right now, and on my website and the kids' website, divinelyguidedchildren.com. So it's about 3 to 5 minute videos, and it's cartoons, and it's based. The characters, three of the characters are based off my own children, and then one of them is my grandmother's name. So there's four characters, and they're outside, and the main character is Aramis, which is my daughter, and she's teaching the other kids about spirituality and different topics. And so it's a series of videos that are 3 to 5 minutes long, and so I've released four. This week I have the fifth one that we're going to release, and my idea is to release one every month. And so I'm really excited about that. So it's geared at teaching children now tidbits of information about important topics like energy healing and connecting to earth and grounding and what mindfulness means and what does it mean to be spiritual and what are angels and what are spirit guides, what is a soul. So those are the topics that we've covered. How to manage your emotions. So those are the topics that we've covered so far, and there's so many more to come that will lead to eventually a full length feature film and a series of
Wow.
books. So that's also keeping me very busy because I have to write the scripts. And I have a beautiful artist, Cami DeMario, I'll give her a shout out in Florida, who helped me create the art behind the vision. And then I have an animator in Pakistan, and he's amazing, and the animation studio that he works with. So it's a huge project, but I am so proud of it, and I've got the most wonderful feedback from parents that their children love it. And even I have adults saying, I don't have any children, but I watched it and I learned something I can do for the next one. So I would love for your audience, please go check those out because they are it's my baby, it's my project. And I think it's very complimentary to the school because it's another unique way for them to learn. You know, how kids don't want to sit in front of a Zoom class. They're done with the Zoom, you know? So I really am trying to engage them the best I can. In a perfect world, all the kids are learning outside. There's no inside.
Yes.
It's all outside,
Yes.
you know.
Yes.
And I want kids to teach classes. I was told I need to let kids teach other kids, and
Yes.
I
And
mean,
like
there's
Montessori schools. Yes.
exactly. I mean, we could talk honestly for hours about just my plan for the future of our children and how they should be taught and the principles behind it and everything we're doing wrong right now. But I don't want to bore your audience, so
But have you asked for volunteers? I mean, I know of so many people right now that are spiritual people that are not doing, they're not working.
you know yes. And I have had many people ask me, well, how can I get involved? And the problem right now is that, fortunately but unfortunately, a lot of the things that I'm doing requires me, because I'm designing the classes, I'm writing the scripts for the cartoons, I'm doing my one-on-ones with the children and the parents, and and answering emails and connecting people. And I feel like, gosh, I don't know how I can delegate a lot of this, because I have to do it. But I feel like I am getting to a point now where I'm coming up with things where, okay, I know I could have somebody help me with this. Like I hired somebody recently to transcribe all of my sessions. So that's a huge weight that has been lifted off. So I've hired somebody to do that. I hired somebody briefly to take over my social media, but that didn't work out. So now I'm looking for somebody to do that again. But I am trying to source out. But I'm sure you understand it's hard because it's so important to me that the OCD part of me is like, I have to do it right. I have to do it myself, and I can't quite figure out like how I can ask for help yet. You know what I'm saying? And I need to get there because I think my cup is getting too full. And I'm expending myself in too many directions, and my health matters as well, and I have my own 3 children. So
Yeah. I just don't know how you were doing all of this. This sounds
no,
crazy.
I don't know how I'm doing all of this.
This is, I mean, this is just, I mean, what comes to mind to me that people could help you with, because I had thought about creating a school, the Pleiadian School of Awakening, I think I was going to call it, or something, just a Pleiadian school, because I felt like these people that are awakening are going to need help awakening. And so it's kind of the same idea of how do you teach a baby adult, that in spirituality they don't know. So, okay, what are the basics? Okay, the basics would be, like
Yeah.
chakras and energy and da 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 da. So I think that people like, let's say, QHHT practitioners or people that are at a certain level would be able to write the classes for you if you give them the idea. If you
Mhm.
say, okay, I want a class on this, and then they could write like an outline and then check with you and, okay, yeah, oh, you're missing this. Okay, boom, they add it. And then they go back and then they develop inside, like I could
Mhm.
see you could get help with that.
That's a really good idea. Yeah.
Because I mean, if I had the time, I could do that. I could help you with that. I could say, oh, yeah, I'll write a basics of spirituality 101. Okay. So yeah, I
Yeah.
think you could get help with that if you give them what you want, your skeleton. Oh, I thought of this class and this is what I want to include. And, you
Mhm.
know, yeah.
Well, maybe I could host a Zoom at some point, and I'll publicly announce it. And anybody that wants to come on, we can just brainstorm together as a large group and see where it goes. That's a really good idea. That's thank you, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's what comes to mind right now. But yeah, I mean, this is so needed, so needed that it's crazy. I just, you're gonna need help.
Oh yeah,
You're just gonna need help.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. So right now, are your classes full?
The ones that I'm doing are filling up, and actually, I've been promising some kids, and I finally made time. I'm going to do it once a month. That I'm doing a kids children's spirit group. So those that I've had classes with that really want to like monthly Zoom to talk to other kids and share experiences. Some of these kids are incredible. They're talking about what planet they're from, how they travel through dimensions, time travel, what they're here to do in this. I mean, they're absolutely incredible, and they want to talk to somebody about it. And
Yes.
and there's only one of me, so I've created a group to start next month on the 23rd of October. And I'd like to do it monthly. So if your children are interested, I'm going to try to fit as many as I can, and that way they could just build. We could build a community. And then I also created one for parents that a variety of parenting. How do I parent my, what difficulties are we having? And we can share different tools and techniques and ideas. So I also put that, and I'd like to do that one once a month. But as far as the other classes go, it's just right now, it's just myself. And I don't know if you know Tarot by Janine, but she's amazing. And she's
Yeah,
teaching,
Janine, yeah.
yeah, Janine, she's teaching tarot to children and adults and astrology to children and adults. So 4 different classes those are up right now. And I have some
Wow.
art classes that are going to come up soon. And a crystal class and a bunch of things are coming. But yes, they do fill up, and we've received a lot of great feedback from them, which is wonderful. But there's only so much we can do right now. But I really want to get these physical centers up and running because I feel the energy of these children together will be absolutely incredible and what they're capable of doing. And I'm really trying to follow the Lemurian principles. So I had a lifetime in Lemuria. I'm also Pleiadian, and um, a lot of Lemurian, a lot of Lemurians, both adults and children, right now have been coming into my sessions, and they have been guiding me, saying we need to model the Lemurian way of the way of teaching, how to inspire children, how to teach them at their level, as it were. So I see us getting rid of grades altogether, as not just grades like kindergarten, first, second,
Homework, all that stuff. Yeah.
but not even just the levels of grades, but the actual grades themselves.
Yes.
All of that's going, and it's going to be modeled more on putting them environments that they're interested in and having them kind of master and really focus on one area at a time, and have children. Some children teach other children. Be more outside, be more in nature, teaching them really the fundamentals of life. And that is not math. That is not science. That is not
Right.
English. Is not
Well,
writing.
dealing with emotion is, I feel like, critical, like one of the most critical things, because children, you know how they throw their temper tantrums, So early on, as parents, we need to learn how to deal with
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
and then and
absolutely.
show them how to deal with it. So I feel like dealing with emotion should be like one of the priorities, because you're going to encounter it super early, like in a
Hmm.
year and a half, 2 years, and they're throwing temper tantrums, and you need to know how to handle it and how to teach them how to handle themselves.
Yeah, and like I said, that is the biggest challenge, hands down, right now, and that I'm finding in my sessions with the parents who are having trouble managing their children, and also the children themselves, because they don't know how to get out of fear or anger when they get down in that low vibration, and they react violently. They hit, they scream, they throw, they're not bad kids. They just don't know how to channel that energy. They've never. A lot of these children are first timers. They've never been to Earth. They've never experienced this variety of emotions before, and so they absolutely become uh, paralyzed by it, and they
Yeah,
don't know what to do with it. They
how
don't
to deal
understand
with it.
what it is. And so I'm teaching a variety of techniques. Some of my earlier classes, we did tapping, emotion code or emotion releasing, which is a variety of the emotion code, but it's a little bit more simple, that I created for kids, and mindful breathing, teaching them to breathe through
That's
it.
a good one.
That's the biggest one, and it's the easiest one that I find. Like, I always tell my daughter, 5 breaths, and she knows now. So because my daughter is the one of the most challenging categories, and she is very difficult, but she is the one of the future leaders of the world. So they can be very stubborn. They are very wise. They're ascended masters, and so they know a lot. And they don't like to be children. They don't want to be taught. They want to teach. They don't like to be. They don't want you to say no to them. So they're very, very difficult to manage. And so my daughter is one of those. When she doesn't get her way, she starts to freak out. She gets mad, or her brother annoys her. Her first instinct is just punch him, and she gets so upset. She just doesn't know what to do with that emotion.
Right.
I call her, she's fire. So we have this thing. I say, Aramis, 5 breaths, and I taught her. You take 5 deep breaths. It's very simple. And we count, and I could see her by every single breath starting to get a little bit more, and then we get to one, and I say, "Are you okay? Are we feeling better now?" And she'll sometimes no, and I said, "Okay, 5 more breaths," and we do it again. And then finally, when you have that cry and you do the like that one breath, and you feel, what I'm talking. Everyone knows what
Yeah.
I'm talking about. And I feel that, and she does that, and I'm like, "You feel better?" And she's like, "Okay." And then, like, I could feel her bringing herself back, but she
Yes.
can manage it. Do you have to give them things that they can manage, and it's easy and simple concepts? So breathing is easy for all ages. Tapping is easy for those that are willing to do it. Some of them get embarrassed because they don't want to do it in front of
In front
others.
of
So
others.
you
Yes.
have to figure out ways to work with them depending on what they're willing to do. But you are absolutely right. That is fundamental, is managing your emotions and understanding what vibration is and how it affects. Actually, the most recent video that I just released, the Divinely Guided Children, we talk about emotions and how to breathe through them in that episode. So we do get into it. But obviously, it needs to be much more in depth. But in these cartoons, it's meant to be much more of a, like, let's touch on this subject. Let's
Yeah.
let's get them thinking, and maybe they'll ask their parents about it when they get off. Mom, can you tell me more about this? And then hopefully they'll be able to open up a conversation about it. So
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Well, I know that in the last conversation I had about the children, it was explained that that children manifest just like we do. They have that power,
mhm.
which I think it's really scary, because I feel children shouldn't have that power. I think it's too much power. So if the child, let's say, was not wanted in the womb, then the child could manifest from now on, people don't love me.
Mhm.
And then it's just going to continue from there.
Mhm.
So the manifestation as well, as it was explained, is not only the child is manifesting, but also the expectation of the parents. That is also added into the manifestation as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
So it's important to like I mentioned before, that the parent understands that they're adding into either adding or subtracting to this whole temper tantrum that's happening. So it's really important that parents are paying attention to the expectation of that child.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One of the biggest mistakes parents make is punishing their children for doing something that they would, that because they did it the way that they didn't do it the way that they would have done it. And I
Yeah.
said, you have to stop doing that. This is a child with its own, with their own journey, their own mindset, their own free will. You cannot punish them, and you cannot judge them based on what you would do, how you would do it better, how you would have done it differently, because this is that they're actually here to break the parents'
Yes.
paradigms or preconceived thoughts on our reality. Because this is, people get mad at me when I say this, but we've been doing it wrong for a very long time, and it's no
Yeah.
fault from anybody else, because they're just following what they learned,
Right.
right? So
Right.
how their parents raised them, and then the parents before them, and it's generational, and so they're
Yes.
just doing what they all they know. And these newer children come in, and they have a much different perspective. They know that things are not right, and they're here to break you out of your comfort zone and break you out of that little box that we've been placed in, and make us rethink, hold on a second, is that actually the right way to move forward with this? Or is that the right way for me to parent my child? Is that the right way for me to what's the word, um, I can't think of the word, uh, when you when the children get in trouble, what's the word I'm trying to think of? Correct them, or the right way to punish them.
Hmm.
What you've learned your whole life as the proper way, and they're there to take you out of your comfort zone. So you realize, hold on a second, this may not be the right way to do it. Let me think of an alternative way. And it's all about listening and developing mutual respect, because we have this hierarchy that we've created in our society, where it's the parent, and then there's the child, and I'm the adult, and you have to listen to me. And what I say goes, and you speak when spoken to, and you listen. And when you go out to the world, you only respect your elders, and what they say goes. And we're taught that. When these kids are programmed to think that, and that's not the right way. They're supposed to come in, and we're supposed to learn love and mutual respect for one another, and they're here to teach us just as much as we are here to teach them. And so it's trying to find that balance of give and take. And as a parent, it's hard to do. And one of the biggest challenges of parents is admitting that you were wrong. Oh man, I overreacted with that. I've had to think
Yes.
about it. And a lot of parents won't do that because
Or
they're
say
parents,
they're sorry.
or say they're sorry. And these
That's a
children are
big
so
one.
forgiving. No matter what you do, they forgive, they forgive, they forgive, because they are at the vibration of love and compassion and empathy. So they know on some level they're here to guide their parents. So they have a lot of patience. And it's just about us just thinking from a different perspective, and recognizing that it's okay to break the patterns and do something different than your parent did. And you don't have to spank them. It's no longer acceptable to beat your children. It's no longer acceptable to lock them in a room all day, and a lot of the things that parents, a lot of the older generations used to do. And it's all about, okay, let's talk these things through. Instead of saying no, explain to your child, why are you saying no? Give them options. Instead of saying you have to do this, say, okay, here are your options, A, B, and C. Which one do you prefer? Because it empowers the child. And they're not here. Um, they didn't choose us as parents so that we could be their masters and tell them what to do. They actually came here so that they could break us free, and teach and guide us. So it's hard to do that right now, because a lot of parents are struggling to kind of find their way and figure out how to do that. And it's challenging. I believe me, I know. But I think I was gifted my three beautiful, very different children, because it was like schooling for me, and I had to figure it out. And a lot of the things that I write about in my book, Divinely Guided, are examples of things that I've gone through myself, where it's like, oh man, I went through this and I figured it out, and I worked with them, and I figured out, another big mistake that parents make with multiple children is they try to parent them the same.
Yeah.
Children are not the same.
No.
And oftentimes they are completely different. So you can't parent them exactly the same. What works for one may not work for the other. And I'm so lucky because I have three that are completely different. So I have to talk to them three different ways. If I am too aggressive with one, he'll immediately break down and start crying and won't talk because he gets in the freeze mode, and it's too aggressive because he's a crystal child. He's very sensitive. He feels my energy. He doesn't want to disappoint. So if he even feels like I'm disappointed or upset, he breaks down. So I don't even need to get that far. All I need to do is say, this is what you did wrong. And he said, oh, okay, I'll correct it. But then I have another one that's completely different than that. And he needs me to explain it. Let's talk about it. Let's give me some options. He's an analytical thinker. He's a star child. So he's like, I see the brain going. And then after I tell him, I can see him processing it. And then he has to regurgitate it so that in a way that he knows that I know that he understands. So it has to be very verbal. So it's a long process because he needs to let me know that he understands by talking through it. Um, and then my daughter, she doesn't care what I say. She's going to argue no matter what. So I just have to try to just understand how hard. I think about it. How hard must it be to be this ascended master, highly evolved soul stuck in a child's body, looking at a parent like I have so much work to do on this planet. I got to get through these child years. And I think about that and I'm like, man, that must be really hard for you. So I try my best to have patience. It doesn't always work. Sometimes I yell at her and then I immediately say, I'm sorry, or I realize, okay, I overreacted. And I try my best. It's a daily effort. So I am not perfect by any means. I'm learning as I go. And a lot of the things that I have learned have also been through my sessions. I'm not a licensed therapist. I didn't go to school to learn counseling. But what I have learned is through my sessions, children, I will talk to their souls and they'll tell me, this is what I like, this is what works better. And I'm able to relay that. And then over time I've developed, oh, okay, this seems to work well for this type of child. This seems to work well for this type of child. And you catalog it and you start to notice themes. And that's how I'm able to help a lot of children. So it's through my own experiences with my children, but also experiences that I've had through working with other children.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. Are you noticing uh, certain children being more difficult than others? Like if they're from a certain planet, if there's like a pattern of like are Pleiadians harder than Venusians or like anything like that? Is there?
Well, okay, so I'll work backwards. I would say Venusians are the easiest. They're the most loving, and they are just little love bugs, and they just are love, the embodiment of love. So they tend to be the most genuinely kind, sensitive, caring, the easiest children. They tend to be crystal children, or the ones from Alpha Centauri tend to be more gentle and kind. Pleiadians also tend to be very gentle and kind, but there are those that are of a higher density. So I feel like a lot of times the higher density they go, the little bit less patience they have, because they're just like, why don't you guys get this? Because it's challenging for them when they come into our atmosphere, because it's like everything is slow, everything is heavy, and they feel dense, and they don't like the physical body. They don't like that. Like, one of the most common things for high density beings, and this is how you'll know if your child is that way, is they can't seem to get stimulated. They say, I'm bored a lot, all the time. I'm bored. I'm bored. They can't seem to have enough to do, because where they're from, everything is instant. It's like manifesting instantly. You want to do something, it's done. And so when you come to Earth, Earth has time. What's time? Why is it taking so long? Because that's in our matrix. We have time, which time is an illusion, but outside of here, that doesn't exist. So everything is instant. So when they come here, they're like, why is this taking so long? They hate being babies because it seems like forever, and they just want to get up and walk. And once they get up and walk, they want to run. And once they run, they want to, the sky's the limit, right? It's their imagination. And so they tend to be the higher density beings that are a little too evolved for our third dimension right now. But that's the whole point, is that they're coming here to help pull us and anchor us into a higher frequency, into the fifth density dimension, whatever you want to call it. That's their purpose. That's why they're here. So they're bored and annoyed and frustrated, but for a higher purpose, right? Because they're sacrificing to help guide us into another dimension. But it's hard for them and it's very challenging. So if you have a child that's bored, just understand they're not trying to be difficult. They literally are bored. Their synapses in their brain, it's rapid firing, and nothing can keep their attention very long, because they want to do something else, and then they want to do something else, and then they want to do something. What's next, mom? What are we doing now? What are we going to do after this, while they're still doing something? And that is exhausting for the parents and the teachers that are trying to trying to teach them in schools. And that's where a lot of the behavioral problems come from. That's where ADHD comes
Yeah, they
in.
get labeled, of
They get
course.
labeled, and that really irritates me. And that is something I've learned in my sessions, is the labels are such a third density construct, third dimensional construct, and we have to break free of that, because these children are labeled for being different, and they're actually quite unique and special, and they're
Yes.
here to really pull us out of the norm that we've been living in, of what we felt is normal, because we're shifting into something completely different, and they're here to model that. So, the children that have ADHD, they just are full of life. They have so much energy. Their vibration is so vast. Their frequency is high. So they have all this energy. They can't sit still. They have to keep moving. They can't focus on one thing, because their mind is thinking about 15 other things at one time. We're not meant to sit down and learn. We're meant to stand up and move around and walk around and be outside and learn something for a short period of time, and then maybe do something else.
Yep.
And these kids are made to sit in a desk, listen to a teacher for 6 hours a day, with one little break of recess and lunch. And if they don't sit still, they're troublemakers.
Yep.
And that is not the right way. And so these children are not ADHD. They're just evolved and vibrational, and they're passionate, and they're very right brained. So they're very creative, and they want to express their creativity in ways that they're not allowed to, because you can't do that by sitting down making them do math and things that they don't want to do. And then you have the Asperger children. They're highly intelligent. So these are the evolved beings that are, Arcturians, Andromedans. They come in, a lot of the Syrians, they come in because they are here to advance our civilization with technology, and all sorts of things. So they are very smart. So they're very left brained. So they can control their energy, because they're so focused on the analytics of things. They're thinkers. They break things apart. They want to put them back together. So they don't relate with other. That's why they don't relate with other children. They don't want to play with toys. They want to be with adults. They act a little bit different, because they're not here to be a child and play and have an earth experience. They're actually here to teach us, to guide us. So when they become a little bit older, they'll be the future engineers of the world. They will help us with SpaceX and all of these technological advancements with med beds and all of these things. That's what they're here to do. They're very intelligent, and they're here to bring us into a higher intensity of innovation and advancement. What's another example? Autistic children. Again, they're autistic. They're on a spectrum, again, because most of them are first time children, and they don't know how to acclimate to earth. So everything they're sensitive to everything. Sounds, any sensory, the texture of food. What they don't like to look people in the eye, because they can see our energy, and if they don't like it, and it's very uncomfortable for them. I've used this example many times in interviews. I had a child once say they don't want to look in anyone's eyes because they could see their demons. It's scary. They can see entities with them. They could see their dark shadow side. It's very uncomfortable. They don't know how to perceive or understand or recognize it. So they don't want to look into someone's eyes. Now, it's not always bad. They don't want to look in someone's eyes, maybe because their energy is too strong and they don't like the way it feels. It doesn't always have to be bad. So you see that these categories that they put these children in is simply because they don't fit into the norm of society that we've had up until this point. And that's the whole point. They're here to take us out of that and recognize that we are headed into a completely different new way of living. And these children are trying to help us get there. But unfortunately, they're mislabeled, and they are put on medication, and they are deemed, they have behavioral issues. They have to go to therapy, and I have a problem with that, because they are not being allowed to express their true essence. So that's a whole entirely other conversation. but it's important. It's important for parents. So anyone watching this that has a child that's perhaps labeled as any of those that I just said, think about vibrationally and energetically, why your child is that way, and think of them as, wow, they're really truly unique and special, and how are they contributing to our Earth's ascension? What are they here to do to help us evolve? And think of that in a different perspective. Because when they're medicated, they are numbed and their vibration goes down and they lose that essence. And that is the problem. I can't tell you how many 20 to 30-year-olds I'm working with right now who are medicated their whole life, and now at 22, 23, 24 are truly discovering themselves and saying, no one has ever understood me the way you did. Thank you so much. All this therapy I've had all these years, you just made me understand what my purpose is or why I'm here. Because they were medicated their whole, a large part of their adolescent years, and they lost themselves.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And of course, that's what those drugs were made for, was
Exactly.
to get these children not to be who they are, so that the what's happening keeps happening, right? So that they couldn't rise to what they needed to do and raise their vibration, you
Yes.
know. And tell me about their psychic abilities. Do they all pretty much have like mega psychic abilities?
I think a lot of them do. Like I said, I've worked with children that will tell me their life on Mars, or a battle they had on Mars, rather, what their body looked like, where they're from, what they're here to do, what the ascension is, what angels are for, or what angels do, rather, how they help us. Um, I mean, you name it. I mean, I've heard it. So there are those that come in very spiritually aware. But then I also work with those that I heard their parents say, I haven't noticed any spiritual gifts necessarily, where they haven't said, I see angels, or ask about dimensions or things like that. So I think that, one, it has a lot to do with how many lives they've been here, what their mission is here, how they are meant to contribute, but also what's blocking them. So that's a whole nother issue, is the controversy behind vaccines. I don't know if we can say that on this channel, and what that does to their vibration, hormones in foods.
Well,
Um,
if you're gonna say the word, just like do this.
okay.
Yeah, instead of saying it.
The hormones in the food, the electromagnetic frequencies. Why do you think every child, practically, that with whose family can afford one, has a tablet? Those electromagnetic frequencies that are coming out of that thing lowers their vibration. It makes them catatonic. The electromagnetic frequencies in the atmosphere cause that. The preservatives in the food, and actually, now that I'm remembering, I have been getting very adamant instructions that I need to make sure that this goes as public as possible, because this is problem number one, and it is so severe that parents do not recognize it. And this is something easy that all parents, well, easy, but something that parents can make a change. But the biggest issue right now for our children and what they're doing, and I'm saying, the dark entities in the world that are trying to control our children, what they're doing to manipulate their vibration and to disconnect them from their soul essence, is through sugar. That is number one. If you could eliminate one thing, even more so than the electronics, it's sugar. And I've been getting that message for a while now, and it's getting
Wow.
more strong. And I'm starting to really understand it from an energetic perspective. It it rewires the whole synapses of the brain. It lowers the vibration. It makes them disconcerted. It makes them fall into that low vibration, and then they're not able to control their the anger or the anxiousness that they feel. It disrupts the entire energetic flow of the body, and there's so many negative aspects of it that I never truly understood.
Wow.
And everybody knows sugar is bad. I mean, they've done studies saying it's worse than cocaine, like
Yes,
more,
and it
more,
is.
yeah, more addictive. I have been, it's hammered in every session. A guide comes through and says to that parent, cut out the sugar in their diet. This is really affecting them. And it also makes them, it lowers their intelligence. It causes their immune system to go down. It causes obesity. I mean, all the things that we already know, of course.
Yeah.
But energetically speaking, they said that is the number one weapon that they have against our children. And if you think about it, all those candy stores are everywhere where it's all
Everywhere.
candy. It's I mean, everywhere, every commercial, every TV show, everybody, it's just candy, 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 sugar, 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 sugar. And I'll give you a funny story. My son, who's now 16, when he was around 2 or 3, I didn't know any better, so I'm giving him candy and things like that, and he was obsessed with the candy. And when he was a little bit older, and I was able to start connecting with his guides and things like that, I said, "What is the deal with the sugar?" Because this is my first kid, I don't know anything. And he told me that this is his first life. He's from Alpha Centauri. They don't have sugar where he's from, so it's captivating, and it makes them like it's like it's something that they've never felt before, and it really is overpowering, much like a drug would be for an adult that takes it, like an opioid, for instance. And it's like, oh, this feels amazing. And then you get addicted and you want more and more and more. And he explained this to me all the way back then. I mean, this was like 10 years ago. And then look, fast forward all these years later, and I'm like, oh my God, I totally forgot about that. Like, this is a problem, and we need to really correct it now, because I think it would make a huge difference. So those children that are not having gifts and not connecting, perhaps they're being blocked by the sugar in their body. So that's priority number one, and I really need to make sure to get that information out as much as I can, because everything is built around sugar and their diet, and it's in absolutely everything. So
It's in everything.
it's in
It's in
everything.
everything. Even crackers, like you're like, oh, it's salty. There's no sugar. No, 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 no. Go read it. Go read it.
And I know and I recognize that our life has been built on convenience, and it's cheap. And so what I recommend to people is what I'm doing now for my own kids is I had a talk with them, and we were trying to be more healthy. And so we've eliminated pretty much a lot of the stuff, like the stuff that's obvious, like ice cream, cookies, cake, no can, like we got rid of all of it. That we have cheat days on Fridays where they can have whatever they want on Friday. And I don't mean eat sugar all day, just like for dessert, you want to go to Dairy Queen or something like that. Because I still believe everything in moderation is okay as long as you're watching the rest of the week. And then you slowly start eliminating some of the other stuff that's snuck in there, like the bread and the crackers, and finding healthier alternatives. So I recognize that getting it out 100% is not ideal and not easy. But
Yeah.
perhaps what we could do is at least pay attention to and rid out of their diet the main ones that are the big ones, that are very obvious, and at least start with that, and then work your way into other things, and encourage them to eat more fruit. My son, I got him hooked on frozen sour cherries that they have or not sour, just frozen cherries. And to him, he'll ask for it every night, and I'm like, you can have this every night if you want, because there's no sugar added and it's fruit. And to him, it's like a sugary. To him, it's like a dessert. So you can find creative ways for them to feel like they're still getting it. Um, but that's a huge problem right now, is the sugar.
Yeah, absolutely. And when my son was younger, he has ADD. Well, he has ADD, right? Because he wasn't learning the things that he needed to learn at the time. But um, medicine stopped working. Interesting. And so I tried to go do all natural, all organic.
Hmm.
And what I learned during that process is that when I took away the sugar and the color, the
Uh-huh.
yellows and
Yeah.
the reds and the blues, all those coloring stuff that colors the food. Oh my God,
Yes.
that stuff is horrific.
Horrible.
His behavior changed like that. And he didn't have the H part. He only had ADD. He wasn't hyper, but I noticed that he was more calm
Hmm.
without that in his diet.
Yes.
So it does make a difference. Absolutely does make a difference. And the younger that you guys can get these kids to stop eating this crap, don't introduce candy ever. Don't do it, because it becomes addictive. It really does.
And they
But like
watch
you're
what we
saying,
eat. Like they watch what I've always been very healthy. So mom and they know mom. Oh, mom doesn't eat cookies. Mom, I don't eat that stuff. So you have to model the behavior that you want them to, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, so you have to get yourself healthy too, because this is not just for children. This is for all the adults out there that are saying, I want to be more connected to my higher self, and I want to be more healthy, and I want to raise my vibration. Take the sugar out of your diet as well, or at least reduce it significantly, because this is for everybody. It's not just for the children.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I did want to talk about, so we'll definitely have to have you back,
Oh, yeah.
but about teenagers and young adults, like the 18, 19 kind of age. I would like to get some feedback on that, since kind of that's where my kids are. Um, so that I'm sure we could do a whole show on that already. But we have 5 minutes left, and I want to make sure that we get anything out that you feel people need to know, like, again, your website, your book, how can they help, how can they volunteer, blah blah blah.
Yes. Okay. Well, let's talk about the teens, because that's really important. And my biggest message right now that I'm trying to get out is that a significant portion of adolescents, 18 to mid 20s, when they're right when they're ready to go out into the world, they're not. A lot of them are not interested in school. They are not finding a job that interests them.
So
Literally.
that's why I want to talk about it. That's
Oh yeah.
exactly my son, and I am in a place where I am totally lost on how to help them.
And you are not alone. And I get dozens and dozens and dozens of emails and I work with a lot of these teens and young adults. And what I'm finding and what I've been told is that they have and I talk about this in the book actually, that they are of the hardest category of volunteers that have come to Earth, because we're in this ascension. Okay, so we're breaking down paradigms and then we're rebuilding. And that group is in the rebuilding stage. So they are in that awkward period. Is they have the hardest job. They're in the awkward period to recognize that nothing is working. They don't like anything. School doesn't make sense. There's nothing that I can learn in school that is going to interest me. So we got that down, because we all know those that are in that category. But the problem is that they recognize that, but now they can't find anything to do. So they're staying in their room. They're playing video games. They won't hold on. They can't hold on to a job. They don't want to go to college. Parents are frustrated. They don't get out of their room. What do I do with them? I'm at my wit's end. They're fighting about it. And so I started really researching it and talking to them, and not just themselves, really their higher self, their soul, like what's
Oh,
going on.
good,
And
good.
what they're telling me is that they are the architects of the new world. And so as we break down the paradigms and we rebuild, they are going to be ready to embrace the new way of living, the new medical system, the new way of healing, the new education system, the new teachers, the new guides, the new leaders, the new engineers of the world. They are of that category. And so the jobs that they want don't exist yet, because we're not there yet. So they're kind of like waiting. I've been told this several times, that they're waiting for the consciousness of humanity to catch up. They're waiting for everybody else to wake up so that we can start this ascension or finish this ascension process, because their jobs have not been created yet. They are meant to create them, but we are not in a position yet to create them, because we're still, a lot of it's still being broken down. The education system is breaking down. The medical system is breaking down. The political system is breaking down. Every aspect of our existence is breaking down. And now, once that happens, once that occurs, then these beautiful souls come in and say, okay, I'm kind of interested in the medical industry, or perhaps innovation or entrepreneurship or whatever it may be. And now it's time, okay, how do you want the world to look? And they come in and they are here to rebuild. But we're in this awkward period of, okay, I don't like anything, but there isn't anything available for me. And the reason for that is that the rest of humanity has to really catch up in this ascension process, so that those jobs can we can manifest those positions. And I was doing sessions years ago with young 13, 14-year-old girls and boys, and they would ask, oh, what am I going to do when I get older? And I say I could see as far as like, okay, they're going to do, I could see you working with animals, but it's so weird because you're not a vet, you're not a nurse, you're not working at a zoo or a farm. I don't know what you're doing. but it's like it hasn't been invented yet. And that was happening so many times where I would be like, okay, I see you're like an inventor. I feel like you're an innovator, but I don't know what the job is. And it was happening so many times. I was like, it does not exist. It does not exist. And over time, I started realizing these jobs don't actually exist yet. We're not ready for that next level. And so they're in this kind of lull period of waiting for humanity to catch up. So what I've been working with them on is, okay, why don't you figure out if you could do anything in the world, no, not worrying about school, not worrying about money or any limitations, what would interest you? Design your whole world and what it would look like. And I noticed that they started like the things started kind of circulating in their brain. And they're like, well, I could be interested in this certain thing. And then I say, okay, great. Now start designing it, because soon we're going to reach to a point in humanity, which I believe is as early as next year, 2022, after we have this massive shift in winter, where things are going to start opening up. My youth centers are going to start opening up, and wellness centers are going to start opening up that are different than they look now. All of these opportunities are going to start to open up when people wake up and we start to shift humanity. And now all of a sudden, all of these opportunities are going to arise, and it's going to spark the interest of these children that up until this point haven't felt that motivation yet or that creative spark yet, because we're in this really difficult period of waiting for humanity. I had a couple really evolved, very evolved Arcturian ninth density souls that are in their 20, 19, 18. Well, there was a few. There was a 16-year-old, an 18-year-old, and like a 22-year-old, different people, obviously. And they all were saying the same thing. I am so done waiting. What is taking Earth so long? What is wrong with these people? Why can't they wake up? Why can't they break free of the paradigms and the drugs and the alcohol and the partying? Why can't they just wake up and realize that they're on the wrong path, and we need to do this? And why is it so hard for them? And they're like, I want to go home. I'm done with this. And of course, they're not going to leave, because they signed on, and they're like, they recognize that they have a job to do, but it's very difficult when you're in that physical body. So my best advice to those that have those daughters and sons that don't want to go to college, the whole college system is going to break down. Within the next 5 years, they won't exist. There won't be big universities. So it'll be trade schools that will be free, and they will get to learn what they want to do, and spend 6 months to maybe 2 years learning a trade. And then there won't be any big degrees anymore. Like, a lot of that's going away. There's no certifications. It's all your wisdom and knowledge and what it is that you want to put your effort towards. So there's so many things changing. So I just ask that the parents just relax a little bit. Don't try not to put pressure on them, and just give them the opportunity to manifest what it is that they desire to do. And the inspiration for them will come. But we're just in this really awkward kind of holding pattern right now. And I encourage the parents and the adults watching this, spend this time working on yourself. Meditate, do your own healing, raise your own vibration, and give them kind of an opportunity to figure out what they want to do, but focus your attention on yourself right now and your own ascension. Because perhaps your kid is waiting for you. In some cases, these children are waiting for their parents to ascend, and have their own spiritual awakening, and then suddenly that they'll be a catalyst for their next move. So there's a lot of layers to all of this, and we could talk another time about that. But that I wanted to make sure to get like the main thing out.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So how do people get in touch with you as far as helping their children?
Well, I'm sorry, say that again.
How do people get in touch with you as far
Oh,
as helping their children?
they can go to divinelyguidedchildren.com. That's or intuitivewellnesscenter.com, and either one of them has the same options for children and adults. So it's kind of repetitive, but I want to make sure that they can find me either way. Please check out the cartoons, and let us know how you like them, and maybe perhaps start giving us ideas of what you want to see, as far as what you think your kids would love to learn. And if anyone wants to volunteer, just reach out. Maybe I'll start a list at least of people that want to volunteer. Yeah, and my Divinely Guided book and my intuitive transformation evolution book. I have both two books available through my website as well. Yeah, so those are the main ways.
What is the name, the YouTube channel is just Divinely
It's
Guided.
under my name, Sherry Divband.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay. All
yeah,
right. Very cool. Well, I am so grateful and thankful. I super enjoyed this.
yeah,
This is just it was just exactly what I was hoping that we would get and find, and just super interesting information too. So,
yeah.
Sherry, thank you, thank you,
That's,
thank you, thank you.
thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it, and I hope to come back.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do this again.
Yeah,
And to everybody else, thank you for being here. For those that are going to watch it later, thank you again. Please share, subscribe, and like. The more likes we get, the more it gets pushed out there to other people. And that's really ultimately my goal, is to get people healed as fast as I can think of. And that's why I have the nighttime meditation now at 9 p.m. every night Eastern, is to guide them on their to, like you say, to help people ascend faster. That's the idea. And and to make sure that we're healing parents and children and all that good stuff. So thank you, everyone. And we'll see you soon.
yeah. Bye, everybody.
Bye.